Hello and welcome back to the Birdcage. I'm Jack Kenna, joined alongside Sam Winton, KU expert. Are you a lifelong Jayhawk fan?
I am, yeah. Both my parents went to KU, so I've been a fan since the jump.
So KU expert, lifelong Jayhawk fan, Sam Winton. How are you doing today?
Doing great, Jack. How are you?
Doing pretty good. I'm glad I'm home and done with school. It kind of kicked my butt first semester. The Kansas Jayhawks escaped Allen Fieldhouse. Whew, escaped Allen Fieldhouse with an 87-53 win against the Brown Bears. You were in attendance for the game, as you posted on Twitter and mentioned. You went to church twice on Sunday.
I did, yeah, of course. I mean, had to go to church in the morning, then make my way to the secondary church, I guess, which is Allen Fieldhouse. It was good. Better Christmas, like pre-Christmas game than they have had in the past 2 years. So
Mhm.
that's pretty good. Got a comfortable win against a Brown team that'll probably compete in the Ivy. I don't know if they'll make the tournament, but
Yeah,
a decent team.
yeah. Brown is a decent team. That was only, if I'm right, Brown's fourth loss. They've had a pretty good start to the year. Obviously, when you go to a school like Brown, you're playing a lot of those tougher teams kind of in your non-con. You are almost the weaker opponent, but they're a very capable team. Keno Lilly Jr. is one of the best scorers in college basketball, and
Mhm.
he was the only one who really got going for Brown in this game. He finished the night with 18 points. What were your takeaways from just Brown's offense in the first half, and especially Lilly, because he kind of kept him in there for the first half?
Yeah, Lilly, I mean, he made a bunch of tough shots. I think most of
Mhm.
the shots that Brown made in the first half were they've made a lot of tough shots. So credit to them. Second half, it's just was kind of a buzzsaw they ran into with Kansas. I thought Kansas was pretty good on the defensive end, but
Mhm.
at the same time, Brown was missing a lot of shots. And I mean, Kansas looks pretty good on offense when Zeke Mayo is rolling like that. It's hard to really stop him.
Yeah, it really was. I have in my notes a Zeke Mayo masterclass.
hmm
He had 25 points, and is this a career or is this a season high? Or I know he had a lot of points against NC State. I don't know if
Let
it's a
me
season
look.
high yet.
I'm pretty sure it is a season high. Yeah, he had 26 against NC State, so
So not a
one
season
under.
high, but another just killer Zeke Mayo game. He's really coming into his own, and he feels extremely comfortable. He had a pretty poor game against Creighton. A a poor second half. He played pretty good in the first half against Creighton. I would say a poor all-around game against Missouri.
Mhm.
Granted, nobody on that Kansas team really played good against Missouri. And then back-to-back games, he has been pretty much unstoppable. 51 total points combined in two games. So he is just putting on a show. Hunter Dickinson had a great game as well, 15 and 13. Exactly what you want from your big man. I kind of want to get your opinions on how you think KU's offense has looked the past two games compared to the Creighton and then the Missouri game. Like what's
Yeah,
changed?
I think a big thing is knocking down shots from outside. Like Zeke has been the main part of that. Let's see, 5 and 9 against NC State, 5 of 8 from Brown from three. When you get that, that really opens things up. And also just, I think making a concerned effort to play through Hunter Dickinson really helps this team on offense
Mhm.
because either you're getting a good look from Hunter, right, within 5 to 10 feet with a post move, something like that. That's a good look. He gets swarmed. He's able to kick out to a shooter if they're knocking the shots down. That's a good look too. So I think it really just opens a lot of things up when you can play through Hunter, and the way he's been able to pass the ball this year has been really impressive. Because I feel like he got taken out of the game, definitely against Creighton and Missouri. He just wasn't super effective. So when they're playing through Hunter and he's effective, I think it's the best version of this offense.
Yeah. Kansas really guarded the ball well against Brown. Bill Self even talked about in his post game the only thing they really didn't do too well was defensive rebound, which is true. Brown had 17 offensive rebounds. Now, this, no offense to Brown, I don't think was going to be a game Kansas was going to lose anyways. But the Big 12 is tough. It is one of those years where teams are just going to beat each other down all year. So, what does Kansas need to do on the glass to really win some of those closer games?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing you can look at, and I don't want to criticize KJ too much, but Kansas needs a four who can rebound. KJ Adams is averaging like 4 rebounds a game this year, and from your four position, that's just not going to cut it, especially when KU doesn't have the wing guards that can rebound as well as they had in the past. Like if you look at through KJ's career, right, you've had guys like Christian Brown, Jalen Wilson, Kevin McCullough, wings who can really go and grab rebounds. But when you don't have that, like Zeke is a pretty good rebounder. Rylan Griffin's not great. AJ Storr has been better recently, but isn't great. So like it's really contingent on Hunter getting like every rebound, which just isn't possible because there are times that he's going to be taken off the glass. And when you don't have a four who can rebound, it's really hard because your guards want to get out in transition, but they can't get out in transition if they've got to make a better focus rebounding. So I think it's got to start with KJ, and then just having another guard develop, better rebounding skills. And it's not even skills, a lot of it's effort too. But yeah.
And some of it's just being in the right place at the right time.
Hmm.
But we talk about KJ Adams and how he's kind of been criticized a ton this year for being in the starting lineup and kind of being an offensive liability because kind of outside of the paint, he's not as nearly as effective. What do you think Kansas needs to do to make up for kind of the limitations that KJ kind of brings to the court?
Yeah, I think there's multiple scenarios where KJ really adds elements to the offense, and that's when you get him in the short roll. He's either able to dump it off to Hunter, kick out to a shooter, or go up himself with that little floater that's been really good,
Hmm.
or just running sets to get him lobs. Um, really energizes the crowd, really energizes the team, and KJ's at his best when he's playing with energy. So I think doing those things can make him more effective, but it's also going to be hard when, guys just aren't going to guard him out there on the perimeter, and that makes it a lot harder to get the ball to Hunter. So then you maybe have to do a little high-low with Hunter and KJ, post him more. There are ways you can do it. I like KJ, and I think he has a great role on this team, but it's hard in today's college basketball when you have a guy who's just a complete non-factor from outside.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I feel like it's really hard for Kansas when some of those pieces aren't clicking. When a Zeke Mayo's not playing good, or Rylan Griffin or AJ Storr is really bringing nothing to the court, and then you really are looking at a DeJuan Harris, Hunter Dickinson on the offensive end because KJ is just kind of limited. When Creighton played Kansas, they really had it was a Isaac Trout, Jackson McAndrew on KJ Adams, which is somebody most Kansas fans I think were probably assuming KJ would get the better of them, and he just wasn't really able to find anything easy. For KJ, I feel like a lot of it's trying to get something early and get something easy. If he can start the game with a dunk, an easy layup, an easy find, the game really just kind of opens up for him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he was scoreless in the first half against Brown and played 17 minutes. And, people start freaking out about that because he didn't make too much of an impact. He didn't play a lot in the second half, but he had 10 points. I mean, he's really a guy that I feel like sometimes his baskets like come in bunches. Like if he gets
Hmm.
one, he gets a couple more. And
Hmm.
when he's able to create that energy is really beneficial. So I think it's important to not try and limit him offensively. Like you're going to need stuff from KJ Adams because when you do have to pay attention to KJ, it just opens things up for the shooters even more. It opens things up for Hunter. It just really like he can't be like a non-factor on offense because then you run into games like Creighton where they're just gonna trap Hunter every time.
Hmm.
Have a guy in front, have a guy in back, and he's not even able to catch it. I think he put up like 6 shots against Creighton or something like that, and that just can't
I think
happen.
he was 2 for 6 against Creighton. 2 for 6, 3 for 6. How are those Wendy fries, by the way?
Oh, they're great.
They're so much better
Little.
now since they switched the recipe.
These aren't
So,
as salty, but
oh,
it's okay. Yeah.
all right. I hope you paired that with a frosty.
No, I got the like the cinnamon roll type thing.
Mm. The Cinnabon?
Yeah, they have a Cinnabon like pull apart type thing. I got that, and then a burger.
That sounds delicious. It
It's
really
pretty
does.
good.
I need to
Yeah.
fix my eating habits. I've not been eating very good, and I've been putting on a lot of weight, and so it's showing.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna stay away from Wendy's for a little bit.
Oh, yeah,
You'll have to eat the extra fries for me.
of course.
When we look at Kansas this season, their winning streak at home is up to 7 with the win against Brown. They have a home game coming up on New Year's Eve, which we'll talk about later. Are the Kansas Jayhawks Allen Fieldhouse merchants? I know this is what
Um,
we talk about in our group chat sometimes.
yeah.
It's like I feel like Kansas just plays so much better at Allen Fieldhouse, and I know winning on the road in college basketball is so hard, but this Kansas team really just feels like a completely different team when they play in Allen Fieldhouse.
Yeah, I think it's really easy, and I can't remember who it was. It was either Diggy Court or KJ talked about it after the Missouri loss, and they're like, "Yeah, we are like not like over reliant, but like we really recognize how much energy Allen Fieldhouse brings, and like taking that on the road has been tough." I also think in recent years, there's just been so much more parity in college basketball. So you can go and you can drop games like a UCF on the road. I think it'll be really telling because last year, obviously, the team had a huge road problem. And there's a lot of questions about if this team is really that different than last year's. We don't really know what they are yet. They go play UCF on the road in like a week and a half or something like that. Depending on how they look in that game will be really telling if this team is different enough from last year, or if it'll be the same of, a lot of road struggles. They're going to win their home games and finish around that, 3 or 4 line.
Yeah, that was a UCF team last year that didn't finish really good, but brings back a lot of scoring. I talked to Coach Dawkins at Media Day, and he was saying how he felt his team was kind of going under the radar, how they
Hmm.
had a lot of scoring coming back, a lot of leadership coming back. They bring in Dior Johnson and Mikey Williams, who I don't think play a huge role, but for all of those, 19-year-olds growing up watching Dior Johnson highlights. Like it's something we can relate to a little bit. That team, I think, is having a pretty solid start to the year. I know they beat Texas A&M game one. I think that
Hmm.
was literally the first game of college basketball, or one of the first games of college basketball, and they upset a ranked Texas A&M team. So it's a very capable team, and Kansas is going to have a test when they travel to Orlando.
Yeah, they're like 10-2, something like that. They've been pretty good. They lost a couple games over Thanksgiving to Wisconsin and LSU. But I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I mean the Creighton
Again,
Blue
road
Jays
games,
lost games over Thanksgiving, and they're great. So
of course. Yeah. Road games in the Big 12 are no joke. Especially early in the slate where you're still like you talk about teams figuring who they are around the semester mark. Don't know about this Kansas team yet. I don't know if they've really figured out who they are and how they have to beat teams yet. I think they're getting there, but I mean, these first couple Big 12 games will be super telling.
I haven't really been impressed watching too many of the Kansas games. I was really impressed when they beat Duke.
Hmm.
Without Hunter Dickinson, great win, I feel like, for Kansas. I wasn't really impressed with Michigan State just because they didn't shoot the ball very well, and Michigan State didn't either. And that game was still a little closer than fans would have really liked. And then a lot of the games have just kind of been at home. And really, how much can you take away from a home game at Allen Fieldhouse? Because I think I heard something like when you play, like if you're hosting a team, like the spread like shifts 3 points.
Yeah.
So if a neutral site's like no change, like it's just zeros, it would be like -3.
Hmm.
And if you're on the road, it's +3. I think Allen Fieldhouse gives Kansas like a -8, -8, -9. Like that's just how like crazy that place is. That's how electric it feels. You've gone to more Kansas games than I have.
Hmm.
Has there ever been a Kansas game at Allen Fieldhouse where you're just like, the energy for this game's not very good?
I mean, yeah, the game against Brown wasn't great. Usually the pre-Christmas break where, all the students have gone home, you're playing an Ivy League school. Those games are usually pretty dead. But even still, it's like probably better than I'd say at least like most Power Four, like the regular environment for those games.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, Allen Fieldhouse is just different. It seems like they're never gonna lose there, and when Kansas does, it's always super surprising. So I mean, they're pretty fortunate to have a home court advantage like that.
Did you go to the BYU game last year?
Yeah. Hmm.
What were your thoughts about that game?
I mean, that was that one was weird because usually when they lose at home, it's like they've gotten blown out. Like you think about Kentucky or
Texas or TCU a few years
TCU.
ago.
Yeah.
I was at
But I
that
mean
game.
that
First
one,
game I ever attended at Allen Fieldhouse, we get blown out by Texas Christian.
yeah. But I mean
Well, I was almost
that one
banned
last
from Allen
year,
Fieldhouse.
that one last year against BYU, it's like they were leading at half and they got just destroyed in the second half. BYU like really controlled that game. It was a super impressive win for BYU and something that doesn't happen too often at Allen Fieldhouse where a team wins kind of a close game. It ended up being 8 points, but one that it felt like Kansas should have won, and they usually
Mhm.
don't lose those, and they just happened to lose.
We are now, like you said, the semester mark. I want your key takeaways for Kansas basketball. I want, like, what's your big positive takeaway for Kansas basketball? And then I want a negative takeaway for Kansas basketball.
Yeah, I think the easiest big takeaway is that Zeke Mayo, when he's right, I think is Kansas's best player. I think he gives them the shot creation, the shot making, ability to get to the basket that they haven't had in a long time. Um, he's just so special, and when he gets going, he hasn't been able to get it going on the road, and that's something that he's going to have to do. It's been really good in Allen Fieldhouse, but can he do it on the road?
Hmm.
But I think when he's knocking down shots, he's able to get to the rim. He's super special.
Yeah.
And then I think negatively, it's like Kansas still hasn't figured out who's really going to be the depth contributors on this team. Like you know what you're getting out of Juan. You know what you're getting out of Zeke at this point, I think, when he's right. You know what you're going to get out of Hunter. For the most part, you know what you get out of KJ. That fifth spot in the starting lineup, like we've talked about, there's really been some question marks around. Diggy's shown flashes. Ryland's been okay at times. I feel like he hasn't had a game where he's been like super great, but he's been pretty consistent.
Yeah.
AJ Storr just hasn't really been great, especially not what people thought he was going to be. So I think Kansas really needs to figure out who's the fifth starter going to be if they're going to roll with Ryland like they have in the past two games. I think that's fine. You surround, Hunter, KJ, Juan with two elite shooters and Zeke and Ryland. I think that's great.
Hmm.
And then you just need consistent production out of one of really Diggy or AJ. And I think if you can get that, then this team really has something special. If not, it's going to be hard for them to really pull away in games just because, it's similar to what it was last year.
Yeah. I feel like that fifth starter is really, really intriguing because on paper, you have one of the best players in the Big Ten a season ago transferring to your team. You have an Alabama starter who was in the Final Four a season ago, starting in the Final Four a season ago, transferring to your team. Those should be the dudes stepping up into that fifth spot.
Hmm.
I mean, in reality, when we were looking at it, a lot of people preseason and before Self made any comments figured that Zeke Mayo would be the one coming off the bench.
Yeah.
Like, in all honesty, everyone thought it would be Rylan Griffin, AJ Storr, Dewan, KJ Hunt. And so now you're kind of looking at it and you're like, Zeke Mayo separated himself from those two. And then you have those two guys kind of figuring out what their role is on this Kansas team. And then you have a player like Diggy Coit, who I don't even know how many of us really expected him to play a whole bunch this year. And he has shown flashes that he can really play at this level. And what I will say about him is he's not shy offensively. When he
Hmm.
gets in the game, he is going to look to score and call his own number, which is good at times, but also you're sitting there and you're like, is this a good shot that Diggy's putting up? I mean, he's shown flashes. He's done a really good job so far, I think, this year. But we're just really starting to kind of question that five spot a little bit, that fifth starter a little bit. So I agree with you there.
Hmm. I also think too, super important piece that people aren't talking about just because he hasn't played is Shaq Moore.
Yeah.
Um, really got to see what he could do against Brown. Played 15 minutes, the most he has in a game all season. I think he's super important because Diggy, Zeke, all the other guards besides Juan are much better off the ball. And when you have a guy like Shaq who can come in, he's going to play the pure point. He's going to guard the other team's best player. He's going to shut him down. I think he's pretty athletic too. He's
Hmm.
able to run the offense well. I think that's important to limit DeJuan Harris's minutes a little bit So, you can be fresher on defense and things like that, hopefully. So yeah, I think Shaq's super important too.
Mhm.
Really, because Kansas's like second unit has been pretty bad this year. Like if they're out there running all together, or
Yeah.
when they haven't had Dewan at the point. Like I don't know. Diggy at the point doesn't. I think he's just better off the ball. I think the same with Zeke. So yeah, I think Shaq's super important just to be able to be that backup point guard. Really good defender.
Yeah.
Get to the rim and draw fouls. Like this team is god awful at getting to the free throw line. I think Shaq can at least help with that.
Yeah, you're right. It was nice to see Shaq get some minutes against Brown. He's been kind of been battling an injury all season. I'm certain he will find himself a role on this Kansas team. A role did not mean the voice crack right there. That's kind of embarrassing. I'm 20.
Mm,
I'm sure he will find himself a role on this Kansas team. He's a very good basketball player. The Kansas Jayhawks are going to open up Big 12 play against a very interesting team. It's at home at Allen Fieldhouse on New Year's Eve, but they host West Virginia, who a lot of people had pretty low in the Big 12 polls. They have had some pretty great wins so far this year against number 3 Gonzaga and number 24 Arizona. Arizona, I think we've kind of figured out is not extremely good
hmm.
yet. They have the talent to be good, they're just not very good yet. But that Gonzaga team is pretty good. A lot of people have them in their Sweet 16s. I mean, they've made how many Sweet 16s in a row have they made? Like double digits, maybe? It's
Yeah.
been a lot of Sweet 16s in a row that Gonzaga team's made. So that's a good team. And they beat them. Granted, they were both of those wins were on a neutral site at
Hmm.
Atlantis.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's the tournament they are at. But those are still really good wins. What are your I mean, the game's at Allen Fieldhouse. So I'm sure we're all predicting a Kansas win. But what are you kind of
Hmm.
interested to see looking into this game against West Virginia?
Yeah, I think it'll be important just to see how the offense looks against the Big 12 defense. West Virginia, I don't think is like a elite defense by any stretch of the imagination. Let me look at their Ken Palm real quick. But
Yeah. That's the most useful metric.
it is. I was gonna try
Shout
and
out
find their defensive
Mr.
efficiency.
Ritter for the Ken Palm.
Yeah. Hmm.
I wonder how he spent
Uh,
his break.
so yeah, they're actually pretty good on defense. They're 26th in the country, defensive rating. So yeah, see how they're gonna come out against the Big 12 defense. Obviously, they're gonna be without Tucker DeVries. I think he's out for the year. But
Hopefully he gets a
so that's
med
a
red shirt.
yeah, that would be good for him. So without him, defensively, it'll really just come down to stopping Javon Small. He's been one of the best guards in the Big 12 this year, averaging, close to 20 points a game. Was at Oklahoma
Mm.
State last year. He's really good. So yeah, got to shut him down. See how they come out against the Big 12 defense, and hopefully it's a game that they should be able to control for most of it. West Virginia's they're good. Obviously, every team in the Big 12 is good, but I think it's a game where Kansas should be able to get like they shouldn't have to grind it out against West Virginia. Um,
That's the goal.
yeah.
Obviously, this Kansas team has kind of shown a little bit of ups and downs so far this year. But I agree with everything you said. This is a game where Kansas will hopefully start to finish, have a great game, start Big 12 conference play off right. This is also a Mountaineers team that's looking to get right. Injuries have kind of hurt them so far this year. You touched on DeVries being hurt, and they're led by Javion Small, who is a great pure scorer,
Hmm.
just a great basketball player for West Virginia. If West Virginia wants to win this game, it's gonna have to be through him.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, if he comes in and drops like 30, then obviously you get scared if he's making just every shot. Then things get a little tight, right? When you have a guy like that who can just take over. So yeah, I think it'll be crucial to try and limit him as much as possible. They've been able to do that against really good guards this year. You look at RJ Davis, who didn't have a good game really against Kansas.
Hmm.
Obviously, Keno Lilly led Brown in scoring, but he was like 5 of 19 or something like that, took a lot of shots.
Hmm.
So I think like Small's going to take a lot of shots. If he's making them, then things get dangerous. But I think Kansas's
Yeah.
guards have done a pretty good job on those guys who are like pure scorers so far this year.
Yeah. This is a West Virginia team who was preseason Big 12 number 13. A lot of people
Hmm.
didn't really have much hope for them. They've had some good wins this year. They're missing DeVries. It's a first year head coach as well. So you always kind of question what's the tactic of a first year head coach or a first year head coach at a new school? What's his tactic going to be going into Allen Fieldhouse? I mean, Mark Pope came into Allen Fieldhouse. He wasn't a first year, was he? Was he a first? Was that his only
I
year
don't
at
think it was his
BYU?
first year at BYU. No, I don't
I,
think so.
I don't think so either. But that was a younger coach going into Allen Fieldhouse and getting a win. I think he's gonna have to hope that his team shoots about as well as that BYU team kind of shot against Kansas. Because other than Small, I don't know who else is gonna carry that load for West Virginia, and I guess that's what they're gonna try to have to figure out. But I would predict Kansas gets a pretty good win to open up Big 12 conference play.
Yeah, I would agree. There's I don't remember what the stat is, but I know there's a stat out there about like coaches' first time in Allen Fieldhouse, like Big 12 coaches. They
Mhm.
don't do great. Obviously, Kansas hardly ever loses in Allen, but
Yeah,
like even those coaches who are experiencing it for the first time, really tend to struggle. So it'll be interesting to see how Darian DeVries and the Mountaineers do. But yeah, should be a game that Kansas can control, get some momentum before I think right after that they go on the road to play UCF
yeah.
the next week. Yeah, they've got West Virginia on Tuesday and then UCF that Sunday. So yeah, get some momentum before they have to go on the road and really kind of it's kind of a tough early stretch when you look at it.
It really is. Yeah.
Road games at Cincinnati, Iowa State. Yeah. So this first 2 week stretch of Big 12 play will be big. You
Mhm.
look at their first, you know, 6 games. It's going to be a point where they may have to struggle to win like 4 of those.
Yeah,
Because
there aren't
like
really many gimmies,
at
are there?
Cincinnati, I think is one of the better. There's not. I mean, the home games are gimmies. Should be. The home games are definitely gimmies. They play K-State, Arizona State, West Virginia. Not shouldn't be too worried about those, but like again, so many questions about this
Crazy
team on
things
the
happen
road
in
so
rivalry
far.
games.
Yeah, that's
Things
true.
happen.
I won't speak too negatively about K-State yet, but
I will.
yeah.
They're not good. They are not good. They got
Yeah.
smacked around by Wichita State for 40 minutes. That team is not good.
Yeah.
If we lose to Jerome Tang and Allen Fieldhouse, Kansas, the question mark should be flying.
The sky will fall if that happens, but
Yeah.
again, 3 road games within this first 6 game stretch and 2 of them at 2 of the better teams in the conference in Cincinnati and Iowa State.
Mhm.
So really need to win that UCF game on the road. Then you get some good positive momentum throughout the month of January.
Mhm. I agree. I agree. Last thing, it's gonna be a quick question here. Um, I just lost my question. Week one, preseason AP poll had 5 teams in the top 10 out of the Big 12 and 6 in the top 25. This time around, only 5 teams are in the entire poll, with 2 of them being in the top 10. Can you tell me why? Is this the Big 12 struggling this year? Or does it only look like the Big 12 is struggling because the SEC is doing extremely good? What do you think?
I mean, I think when you look at it, like I don't think the Big 12 has really struggled a whole lot. I mean, I think Arizona has for sure. Some of
I
the
mean,
some of their
Baylor's in the
teams,
poll, but I don't think they've looked nearly their best so far.
yeah. I think the thing is some of the teams that were in the top 10 to start the year haven't got off to the greatest starts. Like you look at a Baylor or an Arizona. But you've got some surprising teams too. I think BYU is probably better than people thought. Kevin Young in his first year. Igor Demin is one of the best players in the country. Um, I think Cincinnati, like Big 12 fans, and I think college basketball fans knew how good Cincinnati could be, but they look like one of the best teams in the conference. Texas Tech has probably overperformed a little bit. Even teams like Colorado, who of course beat UConn and Maui. So I think there are definitely some teams that have surprised some people. I think there are some teams that have underperformed, like Arizona, K-State.
Hmm.
Even Baylor. TCU hasn't gotten off to a great start, but they didn't have a ton of expectations. And even Houston. Like Houston's 8-3. They've played a ton of tough games though. But I think Houston will go through Big 12 play in a similar way they did last year, where they really can pick up a lot of wins.
Mhm.
And obviously the SEC has been insane. So,
Yeah, the SEC's been outrageously good.
mhm. So there's no telling that the SEC up until this point has probably been the best conference in college basketball. They're going to send a ton of teams to the tournament, but I think the Big 12 will too. And I mean, games in the Big 12 are just so tough because I think every team is just super competitive too. So,
Yeah, I agree. I think you said a lot of correct things right there. I don't know necessarily how high I am on Cincinnati yet. I know they're
really,
a good basketball team, but I'm just not sold on Cincinnati quite yet. Maybe that's because their head coach is Sean Miller, but I'll just have to give it
it's
to
Wes Miller, bro. Come on now.
Wes Miller. My fault. Where's Sean Miller at? Xavier?
I think he's still at Xavier.
Why do they have two Millers, bro, in Ohio?
The
That's
crosstown shootout, man.
that's insane work. That is
So,
insane work. Sam, I appreciate you taking the time to come talk to me today. The Kansas Jayhawks will be back in Allen Fieldhouse on New Year's Eve, taking on West Virginia. It's an afternoon game, am I right?
that is correct. It'll be far before the New Year's Eve festivities start.
Far before the festivities, a 1 p.m. tip-off. You can go to the game and have time to spare for your New Year's
Hmm.
plans. Sam, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about Kansas basketball. And for us at the Birdcage, that's all.